praying all day long and nothing's happening. Maybe you need to go out and get a job or take action. So Isaac a little different than Abraham and Sarah and Yaakov and Rivka. God talks directly to Rivka, which you don't have a lot of in the Bible, where God talks directly to a woman. And Rivka is a much more impressive character than Isaac. Isaac seems pretty passive. So Yaakov is like a archetype of the simple people.
Can you say Yaakov? Can you just one time?
Yaakov.
Yaakov. Let's learn to say it. Yaakov.
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 Yaakov is
it's not jack off. It's Yaakov.
Yaakov is an archetype of simple people who sit in tents and study Torah. But simple people who sit in tents and study Torah, they're killed easily. So the more religious Jews are the ones most likely to get wiped out in the Shoah, in the Holocaust. It was the assimilated Jews, the most secular Jews, who are the most likely to, we got to get out of this continent and get away from these killers. So it's nice to have Jews who sit in tents and study Torah, but they're killed more easily. If we had Jews just like, all Jews were like that, we wouldn't have a modern state of Israel. We need hunters. We need to recapture our inner Esau and people who can throw down and can shoot guns and can drive tanks and pilot planes and do those things. So
where'd you read this from? Like the Zionist website or something? Where'd you get this from?
Dennis Prager.
Oh God. Okay, can I get rid of this for a second? Can I just wipe this out?
Sure.
Okay. First of all, the state of Israel, all right, is not a Torah thing, right? As Torah Jews, we don't do anything for the state of Israel. We don't. It got nothing to do with us. The idea that state of Israel and Judaism have anything to do with each other it's ridiculous. Okay, so we don't need to pull somebody out of the base midrash to go and do something for the state of Israel. That's bull. That's got nothing to do with Torah. Show me in the Torah where it says that. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is you're supposed to learn Torah and sit and learn Torah all the time. That is the goal for each and every Jew. I'm not saying I'm able to do it, right? But that as a policy is what every Jew should be doing. Anyone who comes and starts professing that Jews need to pick themselves up, and if it was really, really bad, if we were all sitting in the base midrash and learning, is somebody that I don't want to listen to, because it goes against, ugh. If every Jew would sit and follow Yitzchak's...
Yaakov.
But Yitzchak was the one who sat and learned Torah all day.
No, that was
Yitzchak.
Yaakov.
We talked about this last week.
Oh, okay.
Yitzchak went and learned Torah. Yaakov also did. He followed his father's way. And he sat and he learned Torah all day long in base midrash. Because it says he learned in tents. He dwelled in tents, right? Yaakov dwelled in tents. What are those tents? Do you know whose tents they are?
No.
Rashi says, he sat and he learned in the tents of Shem and Aver. Who were Shem and Aver? Shem was the son of Noah, who was on the boat, and Aver was his son. Right? And we talked about this last week with Abraham went and picked up all the learning from those two, gave it to Yitzchak. Yitzchak sat and he learned all day long Torah. Right? His son Yaakov followed in his footsteps, and they sat and they learned in the base midrash and they davened, and that's what they did all day. And that is what a Jew is supposed to do. A Jew is supposed to learn and daven, and that is his life. Asaph was the father of the Goyim. He was out busy, hunting and this and that, and that's fine, right? But that's not a Jewish thing. A Jewish thing is in the house, learning Torah, in the base midrash, learning Torah, davening. That is a Jewish zach.
Why did Isaac love Esau?
So I just want to finish this. To use the example of Esau, we should learn from Esau, who was the goy, right? Because he didn't learn Torah, that we should emulate him for the state of Israel. I actually like that example, and I'll tell you why. It's as if to say that those who leave and make aliyah and go fight for Israel are following the ways of the goyim. That's really what Prager said, if that's where you got it from. That he's calling people, Jews, who make aliyah and leave learning and go fight in the military in Israel, he's calling them goyim, and he's calling them in the ways of Esau. And I need not to say more than that. Go ahead, next.
Why did Isaac love Esau?
Isaac loved Esau?
Yeah.
Uh,
Because Esau was a bad boy. He had Hittite wives. And you know those Hittite wives?
No.
They'd let their husbands do anything.
I actually wrote out a whole thing about this.
Anything to them. They were a hose. And it really upset Isaac and Rivka that Esau was out constantly humping his Hittite wives. They dressed like sluts. They let their husbands do anything to them.
Can I cut in?
Yeah.
All right. You said that Asaph was a bad boy, did you not?
Yes.
Say it again.
Esau was a bad boy.
Wrong. Asaph was a good boy. According to what we read, the only transgression that Terah accuses Asaph of is selling his birthright. That's in 25:34.
What about marrying the Hittite wives and it upset his parents?
That's not being a bad boy. They just didn't like... as parents, they didn't like who he chose for a wife.
Okay.
Right? He chose a wife from the Hittites.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't like that. They wanted him to marry somebody from Rivka's family.
Yeah.
Okay? They didn't like that. But you know what? So what? And I'll tell you why. My fiance, my Kala's mom didn't want her marrying me. Right? I'm less inclined, to worry about what, a parent interferes with that. So that doesn't make Esau bad. Right? That just makes the parents Jewish. Okay? Okay, Esau was a good boy, and I'm going to tell you why. What did we see? He wanted to kill Yaakov.
Yeah.
So he's, bad boy, right?
Yeah.
Bad boy. Well, not really. He was actually 100% correct for wanting to kill Yaakov. It was all Torah. According to the Torah, according to Halacha, Esau was correct for thinking that Yaakov should have been killed. I'll explain. Esau thought that Yaakov stole Esau's coat. Right? He had this coat, right? And Yaakov stole it. Because remember, Yitzhak was going blind, he felt the coat, and whatever. Right? The punishment for a Ben Noach, who they were all Ben Noachs, and they had to follow the Noachide law, we talked about that, right? I taught this to the Lakewood Rob who's listening in, right? What's the punishment for a non-Jew, according to the Torah, that steals anything?
Death.
Death penalty. So Yaakov stole Esau's coat, so he's chayav misa, right? He deserves the death penalty. So the father of the Jews was a thief, was a ganef. Isn't that upsetting? But Esau was right. He wasn't a bad boy. Now, it's a machlokas in halacha and Torah. It's an argument in the Talmud, and I'll explain it out. It's going to get a little boring. Apparently, Esau paskined, according to Shmuel in the Talmud, who says that even if you live with your parents, your possessions still belong to you. You see, both of the boys, they were probably men at this point, but both of them lived with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And the coat was given to Yaakov by Rivka. Right? And the coat had belonged to Esau. Right? The story goes, it was Esau's coat. Rivka takes it from Esau and gives it to Yaakov. Right? So the question is, who does that coat belong to? Shmuel in the Talmud paskins that even if you live with your parents, your possessions still belong to you, so it belonged to Esau. So when Yaakov took it from Rivka, it really belonged to Esau, therefore it was stealing chayav misa. But Rivka held otherwise. She said we hold by Rabbi Yochanan, who says in the Gemara that even though one may be a big boy, the possessions in that house still belong to the parents. And since, even though that Rivka gave it to her son Esau, it doesn't belong to Esau, because Esau is not capable of taking possession of ownership of any possessions while he lives inside his parents' house. So therefore, it still belongs to Rivka. It's hers to take away from him. And when she gave it to Yaakov, she did that halachically. Therefore, Yaakov is not chayav misa. He did not steal anything, and therefore,